The alarm bells rang through the USS Defender like thunder in a storm. Captain Jake Morrison jumped from his chair and rushed to the main screen. His heart was beating fast as he watched the lights flash red all around the bridge. "What is happening?" Jake asked his crew. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes, but right now those eyes were filled with worry. Lieutenant Amy Blake sat at her station, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. She was young and smart, one of the best communication officers in the fleet. "Captain, we are getting a signal from deep space. It is coming from the outer edge of our galaxy." Jake walked closer to Amy's station. The sound coming from the speakers was strange and scary. It was not like any human language he had ever heard. The signal made patterns that went up and down, like music, but also like someone crying for help. "How far away is it coming from?" Jake asked. "About 2,000 light years from here, sir," Amy replied. "It is very strong. Whoever is sending this has powerful equipment." Dr. Lisa Carter ran onto the bridge. She was the ship's expert on alien languages, though she had never actually met any aliens before. Her brown hair was messy and she looked excited but also frightened. "Captain, you need to let me work on this signal right away," Lisa said. "This could be the first contact with alien life that humans have ever had." Jake nodded. "Do whatever you need to do, Doctor. Amy, keep recording everything." Lisa sat down at a computer and began working. She had studied alien languages for years, even though no one knew if aliens really existed. She had learned about patterns and sounds that might come from other worlds. For 3 hours, Lisa worked on the signal. The rest of the crew watched her with nervous faces. Some of them were scared. Others were excited. Jake felt both emotions at the same time. Finally, Lisa looked up from her computer. Her face was white with fear. "Captain, I have translated part of the message," she said in a quiet voice. "This is not good news." "What does it say?" Jake asked. Lisa's hands shook as she read from her screen. The signal contains star maps showing the location of Earth and all our colonies. It also has detailed information about our weapons and our military ships. There are battle plans and attack formations. The bridge became very quiet. Everyone stared at Lisa with wide eyes. "Are you saying this is a threat?" Jake asked. "It looks like they are planning to attack us," Lisa said. "The message shows pictures of our cities and our military bases. They know where we are and how we defend ourselves." Jake felt cold fear in his stomach. If aliens were planning to attack Earth, humanity was in terrible danger. He had to warn everyone right away. "Amy, send an emergency message to Earth Command immediately. Tell them we have discovered an alien threat," Jake ordered. "Yes, sir," Amy replied. Her voice was shaking. Jake looked at the strange signal on the screen. The pattern still looked like someone crying, but now he thought it might be the sound of enemies preparing for war on Earth. Admiral Kevin Hayes received the message within hours. He was a serious man who had fought in many battles. When he read Jake's report, he knew that humanity faced its greatest danger ever. Kevin called an emergency meeting with all the top military leaders. They gathered in a big room deep underground, where the walls were thick and strong. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kevin said to the group, "we have received confirmation that hostile aliens are planning to attack Earth and all human colonies. This is not a drill." The room filled with worried voices as everyone began talking at once. Some people asked questions. Others made suggestions. Kevin held up his hand for quiet. "The alien signal contains detailed information about our defenses," Kevin continued. "They have been watching us and learning about our military. They know our weak points." General Mary Williams, the head of Earth's defense forces, stood up. "How much time do we have?" "We do not know," Kevin replied. "The signal came from 2,000 light years away, but we do not know how fast their ships can travel." "They might already be on their way." Everyone in the room looked scared. Earth had never faced an enemy from space before. All their weapons and strategies were made for fighting other humans, not aliens. "What do we do?" asked Colonel Bill Davis. Kevin looked at the faces around the table. These were brave people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. Now they face their greatest test. We prepare for war, Kevin said firmly. We will gather every ship, every weapon, every soldier we have. If these aliens want to fight humanity, they will discover that we do not give up easily. Back on the USS Defender, Jake watched the stars outside his window. Somewhere out there, alien, enemies were coming to destroy his world. He thought about his family on Earth, his friends, and all the people he had sworn to protect. Captain, Amy said from her station, Earth Command is sending orders to all ships. We are being called back to Earth immediately. Jake nodded. Set. Course for Earth, maximum speed. And Amy, keep monitoring that alien signal. If it changes, I want to know right away. Yes, sir, Amy replied. As the USS Defender turned toward Earth, Jake felt a mix of fear and determination. He did not know what kind of weapons the aliens had or how many ships they were bringing. But he knew one thing for certain: humanity would not go down without a fight. The alien signal continued to play on the bridge speakers, its strange patterns echoing through the ship. To Jake, it sounded like a war cry, a promise of destruction coming from the dark spaces between the stars. He did not know that far away, in a damaged ship drifting in space, an alien being was desperately trying to call for help. The signal that humans heard as a threat was actually a plea for assistance from a dying civilization, but Jake could not know this. All he knew was that Earth was in danger, and he would do everything in his power to save it. The news spread across human space like wildfire. Within 6 hours of Captain Jake Morrison's first report, every human colony, every space station, and every military outpost knew about the alien threat. People were scared, but they were also angry. No one was going to attack humanity without a fight. Admiral Susan Wells stood in the main command center on Luna Station, watching hundreds of screens that showed ships moving from all over human space. She was a tough woman who had spent 30 years in the military. Her short black hair was streaked with gray, and her green eyes were sharp and focused. How many ships do we have so far? Susan asked her assistant. 2,800. And counting, Admiral, replied Commander Don Miller. More are arriving every hour. Susan nodded. She had never seen so many human ships in one place before. Cargo vessels, mining ships, passenger liners, and military cruisers all came together to defend their home. Even the old ships that should have been retired were being fixed up and sent out to fight. The largest group of ships was gathering near. Jupiter. Commander Ryan Foster led the advanced scout squadron from his ship, the USS Lightning. He was a young man with blonde hair and blue eyes, but he was one of the best pilots in the fleet. Lightning to all scout ships, Ryan spoke into his radio. Form up in attack formation. We are going to be the first to meet these aliens. Behind Ryan's scouts, the heavy battle cruisers took their positions. Captain Nicole Adams commanded the USS Vengeance, a massive ship with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. She had fought in 3 wars against human enemies, but this was different. This time, they were fighting for the survival of their entire species. All weapons ready, Captain, reported her weapons officer. Good, Nicole replied. When we meet these aliens, I want to hit them so hard they wish they had never heard of humanity. On Mars, Colonel Tyler Brooks was preparing the Marine assault. Teams. These were the soldiers who would board alien ships and fight the enemies face to face. Tyler was a big man with scars on his face from old battles. He had trained his Marines to be the toughest fighters in human space. Listen up, Marines, Tyler shouted to his troops. We do not know what these aliens look like or how they fight. But we know one thing for sure. They picked the wrong species to mess with. The Marines cheered and banged their weapons against their armor. They were ready to fight and die for humanity. Back on Earth, the government was preparing for the worst. President Andrew Clark sat in the underground bunker that would protect the world's leaders during the coming war. He was an older man with white hair and worried eyes. Director Murphy, what is the status of the evacuation? Andrew asked. Director Helen Murphy looked up from her computer. She was in charge of protecting Earth civilians. We have moved 50 million people away from the major cities. Mr. President, the underground shelters are ready for 200 million more. That is not enough, Andrew said sadly. If we lose this war, billions of people will die. We are not going to lose, Helen replied firmly. Our military is the best in the galaxy. These aliens will learn that humans do not give up easily. In space, the human fleet continued to grow. Ships arrived from the mining colonies in the asteroid belt. The agricultural worlds sent their defense forces. Even the research stations on the edge of human space contributed what ships they could. Admiral Wells watched the numbers on her screen climb higher and higher. 3,000 ships? 3,500? 4,000. It was the largest military force in human history. Admiral, Commander Miller said, we are getting reports from our long-range sensors. The alien signal is still coming from the same location. They have not moved. Maybe they are waiting for reinforcements, Susan replied. Or maybe they are studying our response to their threat. What are your orders, Admiral? Susan looked at the display showing thousands of human ships ready for battle. She thought about her daughter back on Earth, about all the children who would grow up in slavery if humanity lost this war. We go to them, she said. We will not wait for these aliens to attack our homes. We will meet them in deep space and show them what happens when someone threatens humanity. The order went out to the entire fleet. Admiral Wells would lead the largest military expedition in human history to the coordinates where the alien signal originated. Every ship was to be ready for immediate combat. Captain Morrison received the orders on the USS Defender. He was now part of a fleet so large it would take hours just to count all the ships. Looking out his window, he could see vessels stretching away in every direction like stars in the night sky. Amy, any changes in the alien signal? He asked. No, sir, Lieutenant Blake replied. Still the same message over and over. It sounds like they are getting ready for something big. Dr. Carter was still working on translating more of the alien message. She had managed to decode more sections, and each new piece made the threat seem worse. Captain, I have found something new, she said. The aliens are not just planning to attack Earth. They want to attack all human colonies at the same time. This is going to be a full-scale invasion. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. If the aliens attacked everywhere at once, humanity would be spread too thin to defend properly. How many ships do you think they have? He asked. Based on the battle plans in their message, I estimate they have at least 10,000 ships, Lisa replied. Maybe more. Jake looked out at the human fleet. Even with 4,000 ships, they would be outnumbered more than 2 to 1. But humans had won battles against worse odds before. The journey to the alien coordinates would take 3 days at maximum speed. During that time, the human fleet practiced their battle formations and prepared their weapons. Everyone knew that the next few days would determine the fate of their entire species. As the ships traveled through the darkness of space, many soldiers wrote letters to their families back home. They wanted to say goodbye in case they did not survive the coming battle. Admiral Wells stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the stars stream by. In 3 days, she would either save humanity or watch it die. She had never felt such heavy responsibility before. Admiral, her communications officer said, we are receiving a message from Earth. President Clark wants to speak with you. The president's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired and old, but his voice was strong. Admiral Wells, the hopes of all humanity go with you, he said. Whatever happens out there, know that we are proud of you and your brave crews. Thank you, Mr. President, Susan replied. We will not let you down. The fleet continued its journey into the unknown, carrying the hopes and fears of the entire human race. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a thunderstorm breaking over a quiet field. 4,000 ships appeared at once, their weapons ready and their shields glowing bright blue. Admiral Susan Wells expected to see a massive alien armada waiting for them. Instead, she saw something that made her heart stop. What am I looking at? Susan asked her crew. Lieutenant Commander Beth Rogers stood at the sensor station, her face pale with confusion. She was a smart officer who had served on many ships, but she had never seen anything like this before. Admiral, I'm reading only 7 ships, Beth said slowly. They are not in attack formation. In fact, they are barely moving at all. Susan looked at the main screen with wide eyes. The alien ships were unlike anything humans had ever built. They were smooth and curved like giant flowers made of metal and crystal. But they were not beautiful now. They were broken and dying. Those ships are badly damaged, Beth continued. I'm seeing hull breaches on all of them. Their power levels are very low. Captain Morrison spoke from his ship, the USS Defender. Admiral, this does not look like an invasion force. These ships look like they have been in a terrible battle. Admiral Wells felt confused and worried. Where was the massive alien fleet that was supposed to attack humanity? Where were the 10,000 ships that Dr. Carter had predicted? All ships. Maintain defensive positions, Susan ordered, but do not fire unless fired upon. Commander Ryan Foster led his scout squadron closer to the alien vessels. As his ships approached, he could see that the alien ships were covered in strange burn marks and deep holes. Pieces of metal and crystal floated around them like space debris. Lightning to Fleet Command, Ryan reported. These ships are in very bad shape. I can see bodies floating in space near the damaged areas. Wait, some of them are moving. There are survivors. The alien ships were organic-looking, as if they had been grown rather than built. Their surfaces were smooth and had colors that changed like oil on water. But many sections were dark and cold, showing that the ships were dying. Admiral, Beth said, I am not detecting any weapons on these ships. Their energy signatures are too low for weapon systems. This news shocked everyone in the fleet. If these ships had no weapons, how could they be planning to attack humanity? Dr. Carter worked frantically at her computer, trying to understand what was happening. She had been so sure that the alien signal was a threat. Now she began to wonder if she had made a terrible mistake. Captain Morrison, I need to try talking to them, she said. Maybe we can learn what really happened here, Jake nodded. Do it, Doctor. We need answers. Lisa sent a simple mathematical message toward the alien ships. Mathematics was universal, so any intelligent species should understand it. She sent the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then waited. The response came quickly. The alien ships sent back the same sequence, but they added 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They were showing that they understood. They are trying to communicate, Lisa said excitedly. They want to talk to us. Next, Lisa sent simple pictures made of dots and lines. She showed the sun, the planets, and then pointed to Earth, the aliens. Responded with pictures of their own star system, but something was wrong. Their pictures showed their worlds as dark and empty dots. Suddenly, one of the alien ships sent a new signal. This one was different from the mathematical messages. It was the same signal that had brought the human fleet here, but now it was weaker and more desperate. That is the signal we thought was a threat, Amy Blake said from the USS Defender. But it sounds different now. It sounds like they are asking for help. Dr. Carter worked harder than she had ever worked before. She compared the new signal to the old one, looking for patterns and meanings. Slowly, a terrible truth began to emerge. Oh no, she whispered. Oh no, no, no. What is it, Doctor? Captain Morrison asked. I think I made a mistake, Lisa said, her voice shaking. A terrible mistake. The signal is not a threat. It is a distress call. The bridge of the USS Defender became very quiet. Everyone stared at Dr. Carter with shock and disbelief. Are you saying these aliens are not our enemies? Jake asked. I think they came here looking for help, Lisa replied. The star charts and military information we thought were invasion plans might have been something else entirely. Admiral Wells heard this conversation over the radio. She felt sick to her stomach. Had humanity just brought an army to attack innocent refugees? Dr. Carter, are you certain about this? Susan asked. I am still working on the translation. But yes, I think these beings are survivors of some kind of disaster. They have been sending distress signals, not threats. As if to confirm her words, one of the alien ships suddenly exploded. It had been too damaged to survive any longer. The humans watched in horror as the beautiful ship broke apart and died in the cold darkness of space. 6 ships remaining, Beth reported sadly. Commander Foster moved his scouts closer to the alien vessels. Through the damaged sections, he could see movement inside. The aliens were still alive, but they were clearly suffering. "Admiral, I can see them," Ryan said. "They look hurt and scared. These are not warriors. These are refugees." The largest alien ship, which seemed to be their leader, began sending a new signal. This one was more complex, with pictures and sounds mixed together. Dr. Carter worked to decode it while the entire human fleet watched and waited. "I think their leader is trying to introduce herself," Lisa said. "She is showing us her name and her people. They call themselves something like the Zephyrians." The alien leader appeared on the main screen. She was tall and thin, with large eyes that seemed to glow with their own light. Her skin was pale blue, and she had no hair, but she was clearly intelligent and afraid. When she spoke, her voice was musical and sad. Even without understanding her words, the humans could hear the desperation and hope in her voice. "She is asking for help," Dr. Carter translated. "She is saying that her people are dying and they need our assistance. They have been searching for anyone who might be able to help them." Admiral Wells felt a wave of shame wash over her. These beings had come to humanity for help, and instead of offering assistance, humans had brought an army to destroy them. "All ships, stand down from battle alert," Susan ordered. "We are not facing an enemy, we are facing people who need our help." The alien leader continued to speak, and Dr. Carter translated as best she could. The story that emerged was heartbreaking. The Zephyrians had been fleeing from something terrible, something that had destroyed their homeworlds and killed most of their people. "She says they have been running for many years," Lisa said. "They heard our radio signals and thought we might be strong enough to help them. They sent us their location and information about their technology, hoping we would come to their aid." Captain Morrison felt terrible about the misunderstanding. These people had been calling for help, and humans had interpreted their call as a declaration of war. "Ask her what they are running from," Jake said. Dr. Carter asked the question, and the alien leader's response made everyone in the fleet feel cold with fear. She showed them pictures of dark ships that consumed everything in their path. She showed them dead worlds and empty star systems. "She calls them the Devourers," Lisa translated, "and they are coming this way." The Zephyrian leader, who called herself Melodic Song of Stars, floated in what looked like a bubble of water inside her damaged ship. Her large eyes were filled with tears as she told her story to the humans. Dr. Carter worked hard to translate every word, knowing that the fate of both species might depend on understanding the truth. "My people once lived on 7 beautiful worlds," Melodic Song of Stars said through the translator. "We had cities that sang in the wind and gardens that glowed with their own light. We were a peaceful people who studied the stars and created art with living crystals." Admiral Wells listened carefully from her command ship. The more she heard, the more she understood how wrong humanity had been about these aliens. "What happened to your worlds?" Susan asked through Dr. Carter. The Zephyrian leader's expression became dark with pain. "The Devourers came from the darkness. Between galaxies, they appeared without warning, like a plague of locusts made of metal and hunger." She showed the humans pictures that made their blood run cold. The Devourers were not ships in the way humans understood them. They were living things, but wrong and twisted. Each one was the size of a city, covered in spikes and tentacles that could reach out and grab entire buildings. "They do not just kill," Melodic Song of Stars continued. "They consume. They eat the energy of living things, the light of stars, the very essence of life itself. When they are finished with a world, nothing remains but empty rock floating in space." Commander Alex Turner, the head of intelligence for the human fleet, studied the images carefully. He was a smart man who had spent years learning about different kinds of warfare, but he had never seen anything like this before. "How many of them are there?" Alex asked. "Millions," the Zephyrian replied. "Maybe more. They move in a swarm that covers entire star systems. We tried to fight them, but our weapons could not hurt them. They grew stronger with every world they consumed." Captain Morrison felt sick as He listened to the story. If these devourers were as powerful as the Zephyrian claimed, what chance did humanity have against them? How did you escape? He asked. We did not escape, Melodic Song of Stars said sadly. We are all that remains of our people. 7 ships out of millions. We have been running for 12 years, but the devourers follow us like shadows. They will not stop until every living thing in the galaxy is dead. The human fleet was silent as they absorbed this terrible news. They had come here expecting to fight an alien invasion, but instead they had discovered that something far worse was coming their way. Major Chris Evans, the fleet's strategic advisor, was the first to speak. You said they are following you. Are they coming here? The Zephyrian leader nodded slowly. Yes, they are perhaps 2 months behind us. We tried to lead them away from populated systems, but they can track any living thing across vast distances. When they arrive, they will consume your worlds just as they consumed ours. Admiral Wells felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She had 4,000 ships and millions of brave soldiers, but if the Zephyrians were right, it might not be enough. Why did you come to us? She asked. What made you think humans could help? Melodic Song of Stars smiled for the first time since the conversation began. We have been listening to your radio signals for many years. We learned your languages and studied your history. We saw how you fight against impossible odds and never give up. We saw how you unite when facing a common threat. She paused and looked directly at the human ships surrounding her damaged vessel. We also saw something else. We saw how you protect those who cannot protect themselves. Even your entertainment shows this. You have stories about heroes who save strangers, about warriors who fight for those they have never met. Dr. Carter was surprised by how much the Zephyrians knew about human culture. You studied our television shows? We studied everything, Melodic Song of Stars replied. Your wars, your peace treaties, your art, your music, your movies. We learned that humans have a quality that we had lost long ago. You have the ability to fight not just for yourselves but for others. Commander Foster, still leading his scout squadron near the alien ships, spoke up. What kind of weapons do the Devourers have? The Zephyrian leader showed them more images. The Devourers had no weapons in the traditional sense. Instead, they had organic parts that could shoot energy beams, launch acid clouds, and create force. Fields that could crush entire ships. They adapt quickly, she explained. Whatever weapon you use against them, they learn to defend against it. They become stronger with every battle they fight. Captain Nicole Adams, commanding the USS Vengeance, had been listening quietly. She was a veteran of many space battles, and she understood the tactical situation better than most. You said they follow you, Nicole said. That means they know you are here. They know about us now, too. Yes, Melodic Song of Stars admitted. By coming here, we have brought danger to your people. We are sorry for this, but we had no choice. We are the last of our kind, and we could not die without trying to warn others. The human fleet was quiet again. Everyone was thinking about the same thing. The Devourers were coming whether they wanted to fight or not. The question was not whether there would be a battle, but whether they could win it. Tell us about their weaknesses, Admiral Wells said. Everything has weaknesses. We fought them for 50 years before our worlds fell, the Zephyrian replied. We learned a few things. They are vulnerable to certain types of energy, but only for short periods. They do not understand sacrifice, so they can be confused by actions that seem to hurt the one doing them. She showed them technical data that Dr. Carter began copying immediately. They also have trouble with things that change quickly. They adapt to steady patterns, but random changes can disrupt their coordination. Major Evans studied the tactical information. How do they communicate with each other? Through a kind of living network, Melodic Song of Stars explained. They share thoughts and experiences instantly across vast distances. This makes them very dangerous in battle, but it also might be a weakness. What do you mean? Evans asked. If you could disrupt their network, even temporarily, they would become confused and lost. They would not be able to work together effectively. Admiral Wells felt the first spark of hope since the conversation began. The Devourers might be powerful, but they were not invincible. There might be a way to fight them after all. We need to see everything you have, she said. Every piece of data, every tactical analysis, every weapon design you used against them. If we are going to fight these things, we need to know everything you know. Melodic Song of Stars looked at the human fleet surrounding her small group of refugee ships. For the first time in years, she felt hope. You will fight beside us? She asked. We will fight for you, Admiral Wells replied, and we will fight for ourselves. The Devourers made one mistake when they decided to come to this part of the galaxy. They picked a fight with humanity. The Zephyrian leader smiled again, and this time there was light in her large eyes. Then perhaps the Devourers will finally learn what it means to face an enemy that refuses to surrender. As the human fleet prepared to receive the Zephyrian data, long-range sensors detected something that made everyone's blood run cold. Dark shapes were moving through space toward their location. The Devourers had found them sooner than expected. The real battle was about to begin. The sensors screamed warnings across every human ship as the Devourer fleet emerged from the darkness of space. What appeared on the screens was beyond anything the humans had imagined. Thousands upon thousands of dark shapes moved toward them, like a living storm cloud that stretched across the stars. How many? Admiral Wells asked. Though she was not sure she wanted to know the answer, Lieutenant Commander Beth Rogers stared at her instruments with wide eyes. Admiral, I am reading over 50,000 contacts. They are still coming out of hyperspace. The Devourers did not look like any ships humans had ever seen. They were organic and twisted, each one different from the others. Some looked like giant spiders with metal legs that sparkled with electricity. Others resembled enormous worms covered in spikes and glowing eyes. All of them pulsed with a dark energy that made the humans feel sick just looking at them. My God, whispered Captain Morrison from the USS Defender, there are so many of them. Melodic Song of Stars watched the approaching swarm with the calm of someone who had seen this nightmare before. This is a small group compared to their main fleet, she said quietly. But it is more than enough to destroy both our peoples, Admiral Wells quickly calculated the odds. She had 4,000 human ships against 50,000 alien monsters. In any normal battle, this would mean certain defeat. But Admiral Wells had not become the leader of the human fleet by accepting defeat easily. All ships, battle stations, she ordered. Form defensive formations around the Zephyrian vessels. We are going to make these things pay for every inch of space they take. The human fleet moved with practiced skill, forming protective circles around the damaged Zephyrian ships. The USS Vengeance and other heavy cruisers took the front positions, while the smaller ships prepared to dart in and out of combat. Commander Ryan Foster positioned his scout squadron at the edge of the formation. Lightning Squadron ready for hit-and-run attacks. He reported Colonel Tyler Brooks was already suiting up with his Marine assault teams. If any of those things get close enough, we will board them and tear them apart from the inside. The Devourers moved closer, and the humans could see more details that made their skin crawl. The alien creatures had no clear beginning or end. Parts of them seemed to flow and change like liquid metal. Tentacles reached out from their bodies, tasting the space around them. Admiral, called Dr. Carter from her position on the USS Defender, the Zephyrians are sharing their weapon modifications with us. They have energy patterns that can hurt the Devourers, but only for short periods. How short? Susan asked. Maybe 30 seconds before the Devourers adapt, Dr. Carter replied. After that, the same weapon becomes useless. Major Chris Evans studied the tactical situation from his command post. That means we need to hit them with everything we have in the first attack. After that, we will have to keep changing our weapons and strategies. The lead Devourer was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the largest human battleship. It moved through space like a shark swimming through dark water, and smaller Devourers followed behind it like a pack of hungry wolves. Target the big one first, Admiral Wells ordered. All heavy cruisers, coordinate your fire. Captain Nicole Adams smiled grimly from the bridge of the USS Vengeance. you heard the Admiral. Let us show these things what human firepower looks like. The battle began with a thunderous barrage of energy beams and missiles from the human fleet. The space between the two forces lit up like the birth of a star as thousands of weapons fired at once. The Zephyrians added their own crystal-based energy weapons to the attack. For a moment, it looked like the attack was working. The lead devourer writhed and twisted as the energy beams tore into its dark flesh. Pieces of it broke away and floated into space, but then the creature began to change. Its surface shifted and hardened, becoming reflective like a mirror. The energy beams that had been hurting it now bounced off harmlessly. It adapted, Dr. Carter said in amazement. In less than 20 seconds, it completely changed its defenses. The Devourers responded to the human attack with weapons of their own. Beams of dark energy shot out from their bodies, and where these beams touched human ships, the metal began to dissolve like acid. "Evasive maneuvers," Admiral Wells shouted. "Do not let those beams hit you." The human ships scattered like leaves in a windstorm, using their speed and agility to avoid the deadly energy beams. But the Devourers were faster than they looked, and their weapons could track moving targets with terrible accuracy. The USS Thunder, one of the older cruisers, was caught by a dark energy beam. The human crew watched in horror as their ship began to melt around them. Captain Larry Peterson ordered his crew to abandon ship just before the vessel broke apart. "We lost the Thunder," reported Commander Miller. 200 crew members are floating in escape pods. "Pick them up," Admiral Wells ordered. "No one gets left behind." Commander Foster led his scouts in a daring rescue mission, darting between the massive Devourer ships to collect the survivors. The alien creatures tried to grab the small human ships with their tentacles, but the pilots were too quick and clever. "This is not working," Major Evans said as he watched more human ships take damage. "We need a new strategy." Dr. Carter had been working with the Zephyrian scientists during the battle, trying to find a weakness they could exploit. Suddenly, she made a discovery that changed everything. "Admiral, I found something," she called excitedly. "The Devourers use a network to communicate, just like Melodic Song of Stars said. But our communication systems work on completely different frequencies. What does that mean?" Susan asked while ducking as another dark energy beam passed over. "Her ship. It means our radio signals might be able to jam their network," Dr. Carter explained. "If we broadcast on all frequencies at once, we might be able to confuse them." Lieutenant Amy Blake immediately understood the idea. "I can coordinate a communication barrage from every ship in the fleet. It would be like screaming in their ears so loud they cannot think." "Do it," Admiral Wells ordered. Every human ship began broadcasting at maximum power on every radio frequency they had. The space around the battle filled with human voices, music, television shows, and military communications. The cacophony was so loud that even humans had trouble hearing each other. The effect on the Devourers was immediate and dramatic. The massive creatures began to writhe and twist as if in pain. Their coordinated attacks became clumsy and confused. Some of them began firing at each other by mistake. "It is working," shouted Commander Foster. "They cannot coordinate their attacks." "Captain." Adams saw the opportunity and took it. "All ships, concentrated fire on the lead creature while it is confused." The human fleet struck again, this time focusing all their weapons on the largest Devourer. Without its network connection, the creature could not adapt fast enough to defend itself. Energy beams tore through its body, and finally the massive alien exploded in a burst of dark fire. The smaller Devourers became even more confused when their leader died. They began to scatter in different directions, no longer working together as a unified force. "We hurt them," Admiral Wells said with satisfaction. "They can be beaten, but the victory was temporary." Even as the humans celebrated, more Devourer ships were arriving from deep space. The creatures were learning to adapt to the human radio, jamming, and their network was beginning to function again. "Admiral," Beth Rogers called out, "long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures approaching our position. I think the main Devourer fleet is coming." Susan looked at her damaged fleet. They had won this battle, but barely. If a larger force was coming, humanity would need a miracle to survive. How long until they arrive? She asked. 6 hours, maybe. Less, Beth replied. Admiral Wells looked at the Zephyrian ships floating nearby. These brave people had come to humanity for help, and now both species faced extinction together. Signal all ships, she said firmly. We have 6 hours to prepare for the fight of our lives. We are going to show these devourers that some things in this universe are worth dying for. The human fleet began to regroup and prepare for the final battle, knowing that the fate of all life in the galaxy might depend on what happened in the next few hours. The main Devourer fleet appeared like a nightmare made real. Hundreds of thousands of the twisted creatures emerged from hyperspace, so many that they blocked out the stars behind them. The dark swarm stretched across space like a living galaxy of death and hunger. Admiral Wells stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking at the impossible sight before her. Even with the tactical advantage they had discovered, the human fleet was outnumbered by more than 100 to 1. Any sane military commander would order a retreat. But Admiral Wells was not thinking about military sense. She was thinking about the billions of people back on Earth who were counting on her. All ships, this is Admiral Wells, she broadcast. To the entire fleet, I will not lie to you about our chances. We are facing an enemy that has destroyed countless civilizations across the galaxy. The odds against us are terrible. She paused, looking at the faces of her crew around her. These were good people, brave people who had volunteered to fight for humanity. But we have something the Devourers have never faced before, she continued. We have the stubborn refusal to give up that makes us human. We have the courage to fight for people we have never met. And most importantly, we have each other. Captain Morrison listened to the Admiral's words from his ship, the USS Defender. Around him, his crew prepared their weapons with steady hands, even though they all knew they might die in the next few hours. Dr. Carter, do we have any new information about the Devourers? He asked. Lisa had been working with the Zephyrian scientists during the brief break between battles. Captain, we found something important. The Devourers have a weakness they do not know about. What kind of weakness? They have been consuming civilizations for millions of years, Dr. Carter explained. But every civilization they met was different from humanity in one important way. All of them fought alone. Jake did not understand yet. What do you mean? The Zephyrians fought by themselves. So did all the other species the Devourers destroyed. But humans do something different. We fight together with other species. We make alliances. The Devourers have never faced that before. Melodic Song of Stars had been listening to the conversation. She is right, the Zephyrian leader said. When the Devourers attacked my people, we tried to warn other species in our region of space. But none of them helped us. They thought they could hide or run away, but humans are different, Dr. Carter continued. When we learned about the threat, our first instinct was to help the Zephyrians. That kind of cooperation creates tactical possibilities the Devourers cannot predict. Admiral Wells heard this conversation over the radio. Doctor, are you saying we can use our cooperation as a weapon? Exactly, Lisa replied. If we coordinate our attacks with the Zephyrian ships in ways the Devourers have never seen before, we might be able to confuse their adaptation abilities. The Devourer fleet was moving closer now. The humans could see individual creatures in the swarm, each one larger and more terrifying than the ones they had fought before. These were the veteran killers, the ones that had destroyed entire star systems. Admiral, called Lieutenant Commander Rogers, we have incoming communication. From Earth Command. The face of Admiral Kevin Hayes appeared on the screen. Behind him, the humans could see the underground command center where Earth's leaders were hiding. Admiral Wells, we want you to know that reinforcements are on the way, Kevin said. Every ship we can spare is coming to your location. How many ships? Susan asked. 3,000 more vessels. They should arrive in 2 hours. Admiral Wells felt a moment of hope, but then she realized the truth. Admiral Hayes, in 2 hours this battle will be over. Either we will have won, or we will all be dead. Kevin's face was grim. Then you must hold out for 2 hours. The fate of humanity depends on it." The communication ended, and Admiral Wells turned back to the approaching enemy. The Devourers were so close now that the humans could see the details of their twisted bodies. Tentacles writhed in space, and dark energy crackled between their metal spines. "All ships, prepare for final battle," Admiral Wells ordered. "Zephyrian vessels, coordinate your attacks with our ships. We are going to show these creatures what happens when you threaten the innocent." Commander Foster led his scout squadron toward the enemy, followed by the heavy cruisers and battleships. The Zephyrian ships, despite their damage, moved alongside the human vessels like old friends going into battle together. The Devourers attacked first, sending waves of dark energy that turned space itself into a deadly storm. But this time the humans were ready. They scattered in patterns that the Zephyrians had suggested, moving in ways that confused the enemy targeting systems. Captain Adams on the USS Vengeance coordinated the return fire. "All heavy weapons, target the creatures on the left flank. Zephyrian ships, hit them with your crystal weapons at the same time." The combined attack was devastating. Human energy beams and Zephyrian crystal weapons struck the Devourers simultaneously, creating a reaction that neither species could have achieved alone. The targeted creatures exploded in brilliant flashes of light. "It worked," shouted Major Evans. "The combined attack is more effective than either weapon alone." But the Devourers were learning quickly. They began to spread out more, making it harder for the humans and Zephyrians to coordinate their attacks. The battle became a deadly dance in space, with ships from both sides weaving between the massive alien creatures. Colonel Brooks finally got his chance when a damaged Devourer drifted close to the human fleet. Marine assault teams board that creature and tear it apart from the inside. The Marines flew across space in their small attack craft, landing on the surface of the alien creature. What they found inside was unlike anything they had imagined. The creature was not just a ship, but a living being with organs and blood vessels running through its corridors. "Plant the explosives and get out," Brooks ordered his teams. But when the explosives went off, something unexpected happened. The creature did not just die, it sent out a signal that disrupted the entire Devourer network. "Admiral," Dr. Carter called excitedly, "when we destroyed that creature from the inside, it caused a feedback loop in their communication system. If we can do that to more of them, we might be able to shut down their entire network." "Admiral." Wells saw the opportunity immediately. "All ships with Marine teams, target the damaged creatures for boarding actions. We are going to use their own network against them." The battle that followed became the stuff of legend. Human Marines boarded Devourer creatures while human and Zephyrian ships provided covering fire. Each successful boarding action disrupted the enemy network a little more, making the creatures clumsy and confused. Commander Foster led his pilots in impossible maneuvers, using their small ships to distract the massive creatures while the Marines did their deadly work. Captain Morrison used the USS Defender to ram a damaged Devourer, sacrificing his ship to create an opening for the boarding teams. The turning point came when the Marines managed to board and destroy 5 creatures at the same time. The feedback pulse that resulted shut down the Devourer network completely. Suddenly, hundreds of thousands of the creatures were floating in space, unable to coordinate or communicate. "All ships, attack now while they are helpless," Admiral Wells ordered. The human and Zephyrian fleets struck with everything they had. Energy beams, missiles, and crystal weapons lit up space as the combined forces tore into the confused Devourers. Without their network, the creatures could not adapt fast enough to defend themselves. The battle lasted for 6 hours. But in the end, humanity and their new Zephyrian allies were victorious. The Devourer fleet was destroyed, and the few survivors fled back into the darkness between galaxies. When the reinforcements from Earth finally arrived, they found Admiral Wells and her battered fleet floating among the debris of their impossible victory. The humans had lost many ships and brave people, but they had saved not just themselves, but the entire galaxy. Melodic Song of Stars spoke to the human fleet one last time. "You have given my people something we had lost," she said. Hope, we will never forget that when we called for help, humanity answered. Admiral Wells smiled as she looked at the Zephyrian ships, no longer alone and desperate. That is what humans do, she replied. We help those who need it, and we never give up. The Devourers learned that the hard way. As the combined fleet began the journey back to human space, the galaxy was a little brighter and a little safer. The Devourers were gone, the Zephyrians were saved, and humanity had proved once again that sometimes the greatest strength comes from the willingness to help others. The distress call had been answered, and the universe was better for it.